Hey, this is Michael Elder. Welcome to my YouTube channel called Treasures Galore. On this channel, I talk about everything Forrest Fenn, but most importantly, I go over the Thrill of the Chase's memoir because he has told us repeatedly that in order to solve this thing, you're going to have to read his book. He has even stated that the person that finds this will have read his book. So, the Thrill of the Chase is important. Now, I believe, and Forrest Fenn has clarified that yes, there are hints in Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While that will help you out. So I do put merit in those two books. Now, I always try to tie it back to the thrill of the chase because if Forrest Fenn passed away, right after the chase began, he wouldn't have time to write all these other books. Now, he did tell us that it's possible to find. It's going to be difficult, but not possible, or it's going to be difficult, but possible. So we got to take Forrest Fenn's word on it that it is possible to find this. And if it's possible, then he has to give us all the information we need in the thrill of the chase. So that's why I always try to tie Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While back to the thrill of the chase. And I go through the book and look for, every single word that's used in the poem. What's the context that word is used in? Is there any synonyms used throughout the book? What is he talking about in the stories? Could that relate back to anything in the poem? And even punctuation, and you know anything that's going to tie me from the poem to the book. That's what I'm looking for. So this is my first video. It's technically my second because this is going to be a series about my last solve. And this solve is strictly from the thrill of the chase. And in all this, I do not use any outside knowledge other than the book. And I followed the clues, pretty precisely into this point. And in my mind, the way I interpreted the book and the clues, it all fit. But to no avail, I do not have the treasure. I'm not telling anyone that this is right. I'm just going over my solve and just telling you, that it is a failed solve, but I just want to show you how I arrived there and how I use the book to, you know, find this place. So my I did a three-part series of Where Warm Waters Halt. So technically that's what I should start off with because we know for a fact that Where Warm Waters Halt is the first clue. So that should be my first video. But I did a three-part video series, and it took me like an hour and a half over, three videos to explain where I think Where Warm Waters Halt is. And the first video I talked about, the kettles and the smelly gravy pan, and the scalding water. So scalding water, kettles, and smelling bad. And I tied that to Yellowstone because caldera means kettle, and it's known for its stinking water that's scalding. And then also, I tied it to the potholes on Canyon Street. There are multiple bodies of water in the summertime, so it'd be warm, and they halted in these potholes, and then cars would drive by and bounce the water on people, so the water would halt. It's a temporary stop for that water. And then in my second video, I brought up the train station where I'd go take a warm shower right there on Canyon Street also. And I tied it back to, plumbing and warm water that way. And then my third video, he talked about paved roads. So he says that was many years before the streets were paved. So the deep potholes on Canyon Street often were filled with water. So, and he mentions, a couple instances of, paved roads and dirt roads. And so I tied that back to Canyon Street also. And so for going through the poem, they're contiguous. So that's how I'm gonna do my video series. And I have made some videos about this subject and other clues in the past, but I'm gonna bring them up once again so you guys get the whole picture of myself and what led me to this place. So in the poem it says, begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about what it is, and I go with the most simplest approach. So it says begin it. So what is it? So it has to be something that's very commonly known, or either mentioned, or is going to be mentioned. Because if you just said, oh yeah, go grab it, well, what is it? You have no idea. So in the poem, it says begin it. Well, later on in the poem, he says, your quest to cease. So if your quest is what's ending, then logically, you're beginning your quest. Because if it ends, it has to begin. So that's the most simplest approach, and I feel like people are overcomplicating that by thinking it's something else, but it makes sense. It makes complete logical sense to me that it would be your journey. So let's get on to my video titled, or my second video I should say, on my solve titled, Take It in the Canyon Down. So the poem says, begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down. Now, a lot of people think that, that where warm waters halt is in the canyon, and I completely agree with that. But they say take it down. Well, they're like, well, if you're looking at a map, north is up, so, down would be south. So you're going to go south in the canyon. But I do not believe that. I believe that Forrest Fenn has told us what this means. And I believe he tells us in all 3 books. So I'm going to bring those up. So in the chapter Looking for Lewis and Clark on page 61, Forrest Fenn writes, so I applied some mountain man wisdom to the situation. The sun comes up in the east, and we thought out was south, so that made it easy. Except to say that south was over the highest mountain we'd ever seen. So they applied some mountain man wisdom because they were lost in these mountains, and they ended up about 50 miles from where they started. But they applied some mountain man wisdom, if you've been wise. The sun comes up in the east, and we thought out was south. So let's just use some logic here. So if up is east, then where would down be? Well, down would be west. And if out was south, then what would be in? In would be north. And that's exactly the words that he used in take it in the canyon down. So I believe that he's telling us the directions on where to take it in the canyon down. I believe he's telling us to go north and then west. Again, if up is east, then down would be west. If out was south, then in would be north. And so let's go to Too Far to Walk, and this ties me back to the thrill of the chase. So in the chapter I Wish I Hadn't, chapter 21, page 99, there's an illustration of Forrest Fenn wearing a cowboy hat on top of this cliff, jumping to the top of this tree. Now, I'm not saying that you have to jump off a cliff on top of a tree. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I think is interesting about this is that in his belt buckle, and this is obvious, I'm sure anyone who has this book's probably seen it, but on his belt buckle there is a clue, or there's a word written on there, and it to me, I haven't looked at it with a magnifying glass, but to me it either says clever or clue. So if you look, there's an obvious CL, and it looks like an E a V, an E, and an R. Or you could take it as CL, the B is a U, and then an E at the end, as in clue. So a clue or clever. Now, Forrest Fenn has told us that there are hints in the text of his book. He has never said there are hints in the the illustrations, which I do not know. I personally don't put much merit into the illustrations too much. And the number one reason is I do not feel like I'm smart enough to look at a picture and come up with something that I could tie it back to the poem, unless it's, blatantly obvious, kind of like this one. I just don't feel like I'm smart enough. So that's kind of the reason why, I don't really put much, merit into them, just because, confirmation bias, I guess, and, I don't think I'm smart enough. So, but on this illustration, it's blatant that either it says clue or clever on his belt buckle. Now, maybe that is a hint back to his turquoise belt buckle that he has right in the beginning of his book. You turn the page, it has the illustrations, and then you turn the next page, and it says too far to walk, and right there it has his turquoise belt buckle. Maybe it's that, or maybe he's saying that in this chapter there is a clue or a hint. So let me read. Andy Anderson and I were instructors at the fighter gunnery school on Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix in the early 1960s. His call sign in the air was Stogie, and he had a zest for the chase. So I thought it was interesting that he said a zest for the chase because, we're reading, and that's where the poem is in his book, The Thrill of the Chase. So he continues, we went deer hunting once west of Williams, Arizona, near White Horse Canyon. So what I thought about that was, remember in The Thrill of the Chase when he says his hands turned white and had deep canyons in them? White Horse Canyon, and in The Thrill of the Chase, his hands turned white and had deep canyons in them. So, White Canyon, right? On the first day, each of us got a buck. The canyon was wonderfully untamed. The weather was ideal, the pine smells were invigorating, and we weren't ready to go home. So, the canyon, again, two mentions of canyon, and he says, we weren't ready to go home, which I thought was interesting because I believe that is the key word. So he says, the next morning we got our .22 caliber rifles and set out on foot, hoping to shoot 2 squirrels for lunch. That didn't happen, so we set on the edge of the canyon. So 3 instances of the canyon. And I decided to blow some calls on his varmint collar. So he says, after a couple of calls, we saw a large mountain lion down in the canyon. 4 mentions of the word canyon. But what I thought was interesting right here, he says, down in the canyon. So take it in the canyon down. And in this right here, he says down in the canyon, about 300 feet away. Mountain lions were eating so many cows and calves in the 1960s that the Cattlemen Association offered a $50 bounty, which I believe 50 is how far too far to walk is, and I will go into more detail on that in my next video. She was on the hunt for a warm meal. It was not to be deterred. And so he shoots this mountain lion, and they decided to split the bounty. They didn't know which one shot it, so they split the bounty, $25 each. So let me read. The lion was on the floor of the canyon. That's 5 or 6 instances of him saying the canyon. It had 100-foot vertical walls, and the nearest place to climb down was at least a mile away. Now remember what I just said about the deep canyons in his hands, and then it says 100-foot vertical walls. So sounds deep to me. I volunteered to tie a rope around the animal so we could pull her up and out of the canyon. So there again is those two directions, right? Up and out. The sun comes up in the east, and they thought out was south. So like I just explained, that would mean in and down would be north and then west. Tall trees were growing close to the canyon walls. Again, the canyon. And so he talks about jumping off of, let me just read. So he says, tall trees were growing close to the canyon walls. I figured with a 4-foot jump it might be possible to grab a hold of the top of a pine tree and climb down. As I thought about it, my bravery began to lose traction. And then he talks about, walking. He had to walk an hour to get out of the canyon once again. So 7 times that he brings up the canyon, which to me is hinting at that he's talking about taking in the canyon down. And, hinting you back to, White Horse Canyon, or his hands turn white, had deep canyons in them, which was the Totem Cafe Caper on Canyon Street. And then again, he also mentions up and out of the canyon, just like using Mountain Man wisdom. So let's go to Once Upon a While, and the chapter is titled Montana Golden on page 93. He says, Avalanche Lake was a fairy tale spot for me in the 1940s when I was young and I could do anything. It was just a few miles north and west of where, in 1959, a mountain fell and dammed the Madison River that formed Quake Lake. So in this third and final memoir, he gives us north and then west, and he mentions Quake Lake, where a mountain fell and dammed the Madison River. So another instance of him using the directions north and then west. So let me bring up this map. So let's scroll in here. Oops. Sorry, it's a little touchy. Let's go. Okay, West Yellowstone, right? And it's not letting me zoom in. Why is it not letting me zoom in? Okay, well, I don't know why. Maybe my internet's bad. But there it goes. Let's check this out. So here is Canyon Street. Right here. And you can see North Canyon Street. And then there is Boundary Street. And this is the boundary of Yellowstone Park, which I brought up in my Where Warm Waters Halt video with, the kettles, the scalding water, and the smell is terrible. But also the potholes on Canyon Street, which is right here, right next to the boundary or the border of Yellowstone Park. So if you follow the clues in the poem, you're going to start right here on 191 or Canyon Street, and you're going to go north. Take it in. Right? So you're going to go north. So if you're going north, and then what's the next major highway that turns off? 287, which would be west. So you're going north and then west or northwest. And, I don't want to give too much of my other videos. I already talked about all this, so I probably can say a little, but I believe that he was hinting at, Hebgen Lake as being water high. Because when Skippy flew his plane on Hebgen Lake, right next to, Grayling Creek, he couldn't take off again because the water was 6,000 feet above sea level. So it was too high. What else do you got? You got heavy loads. Now, what would be heavy loads? Well, maybe the mountain that fell and dammed the Madison River, which formed Quake Lake. So, water high, Hebgen Lake, and then heavy loads would be Quake Lake. And using, Canyon Street and take it in the canyon down as north and west, it leads you to, well, Hebgen Lake and Quake Lake. And my solve isn't necessarily right here, but I will get, into that in a later video and explain exactly where I was and why I thought at the time that, the treasure was there. Now, I'm going to repeat this again. I do not believe, well, I know for a fact that I went and looked and didn't find it. So I'm not telling anyone that this is right or this is where the treasure is. I'm not crazy like that. I was wrong. But, reading these books, I feel like there might be some information that maybe someone could pull and, use in their solve and maybe find the treasure chest. And that's my goal in this. I get a lot of people telling me, dude, you're crazy, man. So I get two responses. Either you're wrong or you're giving too much information away. You are so dumb for doing all this because you're going to help someone find this and you're going to hate yourself forever. And to be honest with you, one of the biggest reasons why I'm doing this is because I pray that any information I give someone or give out there on my YouTube channel helps someone. I want this found. Like I've said in my previous videos, I've been searching for 5 years, and I became obsessed with the chase and reading the book. Now, I didn't go out and spend thousands of dollars going boots on the ground. I've only been, 4 times in 5 years. That's less than one trip per year. And I live right in the search area. Like where I work, Forrest Fenn could have, hid the chest. And, I could go out and try to fit stuff, close in Colorado where I live and, tell everyone I went 200 times and go out there, every weekend and go look. But I just don't feel like that's right. I feel like you have to read the book and you're going to walk with confidence to this place. So if you don't have an exact solve, then, might as well not spend your money and, wait and see if there is more confirmers that you can be for sure that you know exactly where to go and you follow the clues exactly from clue 1 to clue 9 to the blaze where you're looking down and the treasure chest is. Now, Forrest Fenn, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said, let's coin a new phrase. And he's saying, if your solve doesn't lead you to, within, a couple feet or something like that, I'm probably going to butcher that, but don't hang me for it. And he's saying it leads you to within a few feet of the treasure. So it's the poem, and before you leave, you're going to pretty much know exactly where you're going and what you're looking for. If you have been wise. If you've been wise. So you have to, it's past tense. You're going to have some idea of what you're looking for when you're out there. So I hope that anything that I give is going to help someone. I became obsessed. I spent so much time reading these books. I even, talk the books into audio files and then I listen to them. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that I at least, listen or read 1 or 2 books of the memoirs every day. And I'm not exaggerating. I work in the oil field and I drive. Sometimes I have 6 hours of drive time each day, and I'm not exaggerating. I have a lot of time. And then even when I'm not driving in the truck, I have time to listen to my iPod, which had the audio files. And, I'd listen to it, and then when I heard something, I'd jot it down, and I'd go back and read it. Because it's interesting, when I read the book, and then when I listen to the book, I catch different things. Which, if you haven't done that, I think it probably would be beneficial for you to, do that if you have the time. So, became obsessed. I got really burnt out and, I want this thing found. I hope it helps someone. But in all likelihood, everyone has their own opinions, and they have their solve, and just like me, and they don't really want to deviate and listen to and take stuff from some random YouTuber and apply it. So the chances of me saying something and someone else using it and finding the chest might be very small. Now, with me going over the book as much as I have, I've had to have mentioned at least a couple things that are a hint, whether I interpret them right or wrong, that's who knows. But I feel like when you read this book, you're reading through the hints. So every time you read the book, look for anything that sticks out. And this one stuck out in my mind because he was telling us specific directions on the way you need to go in the canyon, north and then west. So that is it for this video. So like I said, I'm going to go through my whole solve and go through each clue. And I know if you guys have been watching my videos for the past year or whatever, I have made videos about some of these things. But I'm just going over my solve once again and putting it out there, and finally I'll reveal exactly where I went searching and why I thought it was there in the first place. So anyways, hope you guys like this video. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell. It'd mean a lot. And, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or tell me, most importantly, leave a comment and tell me what you think. Or if you think I'm wrong, tell me why. But I will say this. When I'm talking to people and emailing me and, writing comments, I'm a book purist. If you're not going to tie your thoughts back to the book, then I'm probably not even going to, pay attention to what you said, because I feel like, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like Forrest Fenn has told us this, is that the thrill of the chase is really important, and that's the key to solving the clues. So if you're not using the book in your logic and your thinking, then I will disagree with you, 100% of the time. And also, I try to find multiple instances of things and not just one little passage and using that, because you could go through a million aberrations. That's why I feel like Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While are so important, because there are, if you say, confirmers that lead you back to the thrill of chase, and that's how you know which hints in the book or which parts of the book are important, and maybe even explain further on why. So, Too Far to Walk, Once Upon a While, important. You got to tie everything back to the thrill of the chase. That's just my opinion. I feel like there's an answer for every single, line in the poem. Maybe not every line, but the major parts, especially the 9 clues, and that and even more. I feel like they're in the book, and you got to use them. So, again, tell me your thoughts, but always try to tie it back to the thrill of the chase, or the other memoirs, with the thrill of the chase. So, anyways, it is almost 1 o'clock. I have to get up at 6 o'clock to go to work, and I'm going to really regret this, but this is the only time I had to make a video. I know it's been like 3 or 4 days since I've made one, so I feel compelled to get one out. I have 2 businesses. I'm still working, thank goodness. Thank goodness I work, in the mountains and not around people, so I'm continuing to work. And I have 3 kids and a wife. So I'm really, really busy, and I'm trying my best to get on and do a live video just on my channel just to try it out. And then, me and Carter talked about going live every, Sunday and Tuesday, the only days that, the major Fenn channels don't have, because we don't want to step on anyone's toes. But I might have to go live on one of the dates that another YouTuber has. I'm not asking anyone to not watch their videos. I'm just trying to get used to, going live and whatnot in the future. So, Anyways, it's getting late, so I need to go to bed. But I hope you guys are staying safe. Things are getting crazy. They're getting really crazy. And I hope you guys are doing all right. I hope you guys, you know, I hope your job's not affected. Most likely, a lot of you, a lot of your jobs probably are. And so, you're in my thoughts and prayers. This thing's crazy, and we all need to, stick together, try to stay positive, and most importantly, help each other out if someone else is in need. So, yeah. So that's it for this video, guys. Tell me what you guys think, and I will catch you on the next video. And sorry for rambling. It is getting late, and I'm losing my mind. So, all right, guys. I'll see you in the next video.